I read a comment thread on Reddit earlier today, and they were asking, like, what's the point of remastering a film for 4K if you're not going to release it, or if you're not going to release it on a, like, UHD disc? Um, and there's a lot of different annotations that you can make from this. I'm trying to think of, like, an example of a film or something. Like, there's one, I believe it's being played at the Astor this week. Morning of the Earth. It's the 50th anniversary screening. It's a 1972 movie, and it's a 4K digital remaster. And it's one of those. It's like a surfing beach kind of movie, like one of those classics. I don't know if it's Aussie or whatever, but still. And it's one of those things of, like, there's that and there's, like, Beetlejuice, where you have a film that's iconic, it's called classic maybe, it gets a 4K restoration, like, a lot of hard work and money gets put into that restoration, and it gets released theatrically, and, there's, like, limited runs, say at specific theatres and whatever, again, like the Astor Theatre, which in Melbourne, Australia is a kind of boutique cinema in a way. Like, it's not like the Cinema Nova where it's like really small screens, but you get to watch a movie for like $7 on a Monday, and it could be anything from anywhere kind of deal. The Astor is like one gigantic fucking screen. They'll play like one movie a day unless they've got a season where they're playing the same film multiple times a day kind of deal, which they've had to start doing because of COVID and whatever, which in all fairness I'm kind of down for, because it's like, I can imagine it's better for them. Like, I don't know how much cheaper, if it's more cost efficient to run a film multiple times, uh, or not. Depends on the film, I guess. But nevertheless, there is the occasion, of course, when a film will get a 4K restoration, but it will only be distributed around the world or in certain countries, probably mostly English-speaking countries, say the UK, America, maybe Australia, usually at the tail end of that trip. And after that, usually the film is kind of buried again. For the most part, you hardly see a physical release of that film. And usually it's like, what the fuck that's all about? Like, they had put out Beetlejuice on 4K. I think they released the 4K like 2 years ago, back in 2020. And they actually had it already running as a 4K restoration like 3 years earlier. I had missed a screening at the Astor where they had played it in 4K. And Beetlejuice is a film where the DVD transfer was put directly onto the Blu-ray with like hardly any upscaling or remastering or anything. And it's like, it was kind of shitty in a way. Like, I only got the Blu-ray because it happened to be in a steelbook. So, and I looked at it, I'm like, well, it looks better, but it's still the same transfer. But the 4K UHD was a complete remaster and looks absolutely incredible. But there is, like, the cost efficiency of, you can get a film, a 50-year-old film about surfing, and remaster it for the safety of, hey, we've got the original negative, or whatever, some kind of an original print, some kind of a negative, we've remastered it, now it looks as best as it'll ever look, and we can keep it in the vaults as it's a digital file now, we don't need the film. Like, sure, you could keep the film, whatever, but it's like, we've restorized it, and it's now kept safe in the logs. If we ever need to release it, we can. If it, maybe it'll go straight to streaming services after its initial theatrical run. Maybe it just goes to streaming services. But then there's the additional cost of, okay, maybe if it does perform well to some degree and there's enough want for a physical release, then maybe it might get that restoration straight to a Blu-ray disc, BD50 probably, because it's a 4K, restoration. Maybe there's special features about the restoration and stuff like that they've added into it, maybe just a few special features depending on how big the film is. And from there, you've got the additional steps of how much release do you want it to be? Do you want it to be around the world? Do you want it to be 3,000 units? Do you want it to be 25,000 units? How much do you think it will sell? If it sells out, do you reprint it? And then there's the addition of, do you put it on a UHD? Do you want to put it on that UHD? Do you want to put in the HDR? Do you want to put in the color grading? Do you want to put in, Dolby Vision or HDR10 plus, and money is the only answer. Do you have the money for it? Do you think you will profit from it? Because for the most part, the only reason that film companies will remaster a film is so they can have a remaster in the vault. So they have it in the vault as a digital copy, and they don't have to touch it again. It's safe. It's, we've made it safe. It's all good now. What's the phrase that the person used? Future-proofing. That was the main comment that kind of got me into. I feel like I could do a discussion on this. The scanning for 4K is future-proofing for a possible 4K disc or streaming, but allows them to still release the Blu-ray/DVD, which is a more popular format. As to why they also released the 4K disc, I can assume they don't think it will be profit. As to why they wouldn't. As to why wouldn't they release also? My God. Jesus. Why would they not release it on a 4K disc? It might not be profitable. That's simply it. Like, there are 4K discs that don't have HDR grading, that don't have HDR10. Maybe they've got HDR10, but they don't have anything else. Maybe they're just on a UHD disc, and they don't have any HDR whatsoever. It's just a bigger disc. There you go. Usually they have at least some kind of basic HDR, like even Blade Runner 2049, I know it's a bigger film because it's Sony and whatever, only had like a standard HDR10 color palette, and I don't even think it went that much further than that. So that was like a really disappointing HDR when people discovered how the specs worked, and it was like, oh, it's not really a proper HDR grade, it's just kind of HDR, but not really. So it's basically SDR, standard definition range, standard dynamic range. Anyway, so yeah, it's an interesting thing, because obviously you've got films, say like the Criterion Collection. Them and Arrow Video and Kino and whatever are doing 4K UHDs now. They're only doing, Criterion has finally gone into the game. Of course, they're still having their own production issues and whatever, but they're finally getting into the game, remastering old prints or grabbing old prints and just adding the UHD elements to it, the HDR elements, whatever they can, whatever they want to, whatever maybe they can afford. There's the additional stuff like that. Like, I didn't get Mulholland Drive on 4K until, I didn't get it. I had the standard Australian release, Studio Canal Blu-ray, which was the 4K remaster, which was, approved by David Lynch. Because obviously there was the Studio Canal version for the UK and Australia, and there was the Criterion version for America and Canada, US and Canada. And so that's kind of annoying for someone like me. I wanted to get the Criterion. So then, of course, they announced, oh, here's a 4K UHD of the Criterion. And I'm like, fuck you, I'll buy that. Of course, it still comes in damaged. Wonderful. But it comes with the both discs. And I already had that scan. I just wanted to have the extra bonus features and stuff. And I wanted to have it as a Criterion for the boutique label of, hey, it's a fucking Criterion. And it so happened to come in, and yeah, sure, it has some damage, but it comes with a 4K UHD disc. Have I watched that disc? No, I have not. I haven't at the time. I haven't even thought about it. There's a lot of 4Ks that I have gone through. Even some films will get 4K masters and remasters. There was a period in the mid, early 2010s, where some films would be mastered in 4K and released on Blu-ray. And that was the start of the, let's master it in 4K, release it on Blu-ray, and then when the 4K, format itself becomes popular enough, becomes marketable, we'll do the extra step. The films like Ghostbusters and Elysium, a lot of the Sony library, they did that. They had a lot of films where on the back of the Blu-ray case it said mastered in 4K. They started there. They had it released on 4K. Maybe this was just because the initial Blu-ray wasn't great, or maybe this was the first time it was being released to Blu-ray, so it's hey, let's just make it the best version we can. Something like Elysium was hey, let's just make it the best looking version we can because it's our first release straight to Blu-ray, because it's just come out of the cinemas. Let's just do it, It's probably filmed as a 4K intermediate. Maybe it was, remastered, scanned to a 4K intermediate from, whatever film stock was used to film it. I don't know what the hell it was filmed. It's bloody Elysium. So, there's stuff like that, but like Ghostbusters as well. It's a very famous, very popular title from Sony. So obviously, when they remaster it for 4K, they're like, "Hey, we've remastered for 4K. Here's a 4K Blu-ray." I bought that Blu-ray, and now I have since. I think no, I haven't actually. I've been very tempted to buy the 4K UHD. I'm hoping to get the 2-pack, to be fair, of the first 2 films. But I did buy the first and second film as mastered in 4K discs. And to be fair, they look great. If I did get the 4K UHD, because Ghostbusters is here, yeah, if I did get the 4K UHD, it would obviously look a lot better. But on the occasion, I don't need to get that. But then there's something like Groundhog Day where the Blu-ray looks crappy. But then the 4K looks really good because it's been completely remastered despite still including that original Blu-ray, mostly because they don't want to bother porting over the 4K, but also it's a weird thing because this is like a whole big discussion with 4K that I've seen lately. Like, you've got that avenue of what's the deal with 4K? So what the hell is it? But then like when they just grab a catalog title at random? Do they grab one that they know will sell? When do they remaster? Why do they remaster? How would they release it? Like, Arrow Video has a few 4K releases for Crash and King of New York, where they completely removed the Blu-ray and just had it as a 4K disc. And some people complained, but then when you looked at it, you realized, oh, you can still get the Blu-ray as a separate release. You can't get them as a combined release, but the 4K UHD has all of the bonus features that the Blu-ray has. It's the exact same scan, it's the exact same disc. It's just that the 4K UHD is a UHD disc, so it's 100 gigabytes, plus it has HDR grading and probably Dolby Vision. Whereas the Blu-ray is just the 4K scan on a Blu-ray disc with all the bonus features. So it's like, there's that element of, to make it cheaper for production, they just do one disc, which most people, I personally don't like that. I like it when it comes with a Blu-ray as well. It's just a personal thing. Sometimes, most of the time, the Blu-ray has the special features, sometimes it doesn't. Like, I'm still debating what the hell's wrong with that new Bond film. I haven't even looked at it yet, but I know that the 4K looks really good, but I don't know if the special features are the same on both discs, because the Blu-ray there's a Blu-ray edition and a 4K edition, and they're both collector's edition with only 2 discs. And so my assumption is that the Blu-ray movie version is the movie, but on 1 disc each. And so the first disc for the Blu-ray is the film, probably a 4K transfer, whatever, regular 1080p transfer, and then the 4K has the 4K transfer. But then I believe the second disc is still the Blu-ray movie. So I'm like, which one has the special features? Or is it just the Blu-ray movie and not just the 4K movie and not the Blu-ray movie? I don't know. It's funny, I actually just looked at it, and the problem for me is the fact that the Blu-ray disc says disc 1. So does that mean that disc 2 in the Blu-ray set has all the bonus features? Then where are all the bonus features on the 4K disc? Why isn't it a 3-disc pack? Something like that trips me out. But something like, oh, the 4K has all the bonus features and the Blu-ray has all the bonus features, but the Blu-ray is also the film? I don't know. Is it just a 4K disc which has the movie and bonus features, and then the Blu-ray has just bonus features, but it isn't. That's disc 1. I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not gonna watch them. I don't care to watch the special features. I probably won't watch the special features. But the point is that the fuck's the deal? I know I've kind of gone off tangent of like what the point of 4K mastering is. I mean, do I think it is a good process, the idea of 4K mastering? I mean, of course. Like, the whole preservation of film is very important. That's why such boutique labels like Arrow Video and Criterion should exist. But of course, then there are, other labels like Sony who will probably remaster a bunch of their old film stock, have it all as a 4K scan on a computer system, and be like, well, if we need to release something from the old catalog, here's 50 films that we've remastered. All we got to do is just print them onto UHD discs or print them onto Blu-rays and say that they're mastered in 4K because they're mastered in 4K. So, yeah, I can't imagine having that hard drive in my office. That's like, you'd need to like a terabyte hard drive. That would be like for 2 films, maybe 3. So That would be a lot of computing space, that's for sure. I mean, nevertheless, it's interesting. I think my biggest problem when it comes to releasing stuff in 4K is the two-step factor, where you master it on 4K, release that master on 4K just as a standard Blu-ray, but it's still, BD50, it has the 4K scan, maybe it's got bonus features, yada yada yada, something like Suspiria from Synapse, which boutique label, so that's fine. Or, of course, something like the Evil Dead 2, which I had that problem with, where they released, there obviously was an original Blu-ray release, which is not a great transfer, and when they remastered, it looks fucking fantastic. But in Australia, they didn't release the 4K for like another 6 more months. And I had already bought the Blu-ray, because it was in like October that I bought it, because I'm like, hey, for my birthday I'll buy Evil Dead 2, this new Blu-ray remaster. And then, of course, 6 months later, they released the 4K UHD. It took me another 2 more years to buy that 4K UHD. And then when I did, I watched it, and I'm like, it does look better than the Blu-ray, and I hate that, because it's like, I could have just started with this pack originally. I didn't need to have this extra stuff. But, I have the convenience of, I've used that Blu-ray pack for Evil Dead 2 to put in my Army of Darkness Blu-rays, because my Army of Darkness set is up on the DVD shelf because of how tall it is. It's really annoying. It's got 5 discs though, so it's like, hey, triple DVD, including the TV cut, and double Blu-ray, directors and theatrical cuts. So I'm like, given I don't want to you can't buy a separate cut, like a separate release that has both versions. You can either buy one or the other, or however it be. So I'm like, alright, I'll just stick with using this one case. I just got to print out a piece of paper to cover it up and whatever. But yeah, so there's stuff like that where labels, Evil Dead's probably a different argument, because they probably released it in the US at the same time, but in Australia there was a delay. But something like Suspiria from Synapse, they did this 4K restoration. It looks incredible. And I have the Blu-ray, I've got the Blu-ray Steelbook, which is like 6,000 units because of how gorgeous it looks. And then to up the ante, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to buy the 4K UHD as well, a year or two, I think it was like a year later, because I think I watched the film in 2019 to 2020, and I had a big period, for 6 months there, I watched the film so many times, probably I don't know, maybe in 6 to 8 months, I think I watched it 3 or 4 times, because I just loved it that much. And I watched it I watched it by myself, then I watched it with my best friend at the time, then I watched it with my girlfriend, I watched it with my brother. I think I watched it again, just for the hell of it. And then when they announced that there was a 4K UHD coming out, I'm like, oh, I don't think I need that. But then I still ordered it anyway a few months later, because I had the money for it. This was a year later, and I'd ordered it, and it came in, and it looks fantastic. It does have the benefits of the sleeve and everything, but that's also a set where it's they removed the Blu-ray disc. There is a Blu-ray disc, but it's only the special features disc, which I already have, because I have the first Synapse release plus the Steelbook, but the Steelbook comes with the soundtrack. So now I've got 2 discs with the 4K scan for the Blu-ray on my standard Blu-ray set and my Steelbook set, but then the 4K has its own 4K disc, but all 3 sets have that bonus disc with the bonus features. So yeah, I'd say I could sell off that Blu-ray set, because I don't need it, but it's you never know. I could always do a video essay and scan it into my computer and whatever, because my computer doesn't know how to scan a 4K, which is fine. It is what it is. But yeah, so 4K as an overall is a very tricky area. There's a lot of specifics that come into it, because at the same time, as much as it sounds natural to be make the highest resolution thing possible, but you got to remember that takes a lot of time and effort. I watched Jaws on 4K the other day. I hadn't seen the 4K disc yet. I'd seen the 4K scan on my Blu-ray from 3 or 4 years ago, and it looked, I mean, I went from watching it on TV to watching that Blu-ray, and it looked fantastic. And then I watched the 4K UHD, and it looked even better. But then I watched like one of the special features, which was like an 8-minute video talking about the restoration. And the amount of stuff that they did for that restoration is insane. The amount of detail that they went into. They basically remade the film visually, and it looks exceptional. So it's just one of those things of like, it's gonna cost time and money, but that film will sell. Like, you know, I bought it. I mean, I bought it on sale, but I still bought it, and it was totally worth it. So yeah, there are some 4K films that are worth the 4K remaster. Of course, then there's the avenue of bad 4K remasters, but we're not going to get into that. But still, it's an expensive procedure. It's an expensive process. It's a great process. There's so many more films I'd love for them to come out on 4K, but at the same time, there's a lot of pocket that I'm losing from buying all these films that are being remastered again and again and again. It's like, I don't need... I'm waiting for them to bloody release Saturday Night Fever as a 4K UHD. I mean, hell, because the Blu-ray I have, which has both cuts of the film, is already a 4K restoration, and it looks amazing. But then recently, Turbine has this steelbook set for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it looks amazing. And they've got like 4 different versions, and I was gonna buy it. I was so tempted. And I mean, it's still available as I'm recording, but the only benefit it comes with, outside of a steelbook that I don't have the artwork for, plus a slipcover, which I don't have the artwork of, it comes with a booklet that's all in German. It's Turbine, it's German. But it does come with 3 discs, including a Dolby Vision 4K UHD disc, which it comes with some new style of audio, which I don't know if my system would be able to do, but it does come with Dolby Atmos. So it's like, hey, how about that? You know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 4K UHD, Dolby Vision, and Dolby Atmos. That would be incredible. But that's a film that I already have 2 versions of it on 4K, which are just Blu-ray discs with a 4K transfer. The American Best Buy Steelbook, which looks good, and the Second Sight Steelbook, which comes with a bonus disc with all the special features. My preferred version. But I've watched the 4K remaster on Blu-ray. It looks fine. I think I've seen it twice now on Blu-ray. It's not great to watch that often. Like, it's a good film, but the first time I watched it was in 35mm for the Tobe Hooper retrospective at the Astor, and like, you can't beat that. Like, it wasn't like perfectly remastered and whatever. Like, it had damage, it had dirt, you know, all this kind of stuff. But it worked. It was gritty. It was disgusting. It was like, it worked for the feel of the movie. And a 4K restoration just doesn't do that for me. Like, the same with like the Evil Dead. I'd go for a 35mm print over the 4K any day. The only reason I have the 4K is because I got it as a steelbook set, which comes with The Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 on 4K from the US, which is just because I really love Evil Dead 2. And I kind of wanted the 4K of The Evil Dead, so I'm like, I'll just buy this steelbook. If I ever want to watch it, I can watch it on here, but it's still the remastered version, which has all the recuts and edits and stuff, but I still have the original version, which is the Evil Dead Book of the Dead DVD, which is probably the version that I would watch if I wanted to watch it. Sorry, weirdly, my phone is still connected to my other phone. So I was getting a phone call on there, and I was getting a phone call in here. So the audio recording stopped at some stage, so I figure I'll just wrap it up, because I was wrapping it up anyway. I was talking about the Evil Dead Book of the Dead, and how I'd probably watch it on DVD if I was to watch it. Nevertheless, long enough tangent of a video. But what are your thoughts on 4K remastering? Do you think they should go straight to 4K discs? Do you understand the process, and do you think it's like acceptable that, like, hey, they're restoring and keeping the film in storage, so it's safe, it's all restored, it looks great, and then one day they'll eventually release it? I mean, it is what it is, you know, but hell, if they're going to release a surfing film that's 50 years old on 4K, who knows what they'll do next. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for watching. See you next time.